All right, here we are. Right,
You
it's
ready?
9:59, so we'll give one more minute, and then we can get started. All right, it's 10 o'clock.
Okay, let's kick this off.
Yep.
Let's start off. Good
Yes.
morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Welcome once again to this fifth pit stop in our journey in the marquee series of where strategy meets execution. I am Shantanu Kelkar, and I welcome you all today to this podcast. I'm joined today again as well by Aniket, my dear friend from the US. So we are talking from two different time zones, but it's great to be here back on the stage. Today we'll be covering in continuation with the tone and the rhythm of our last four podcasts, where we are talking about how small and medium businesses can grow with help of robotics and automation. Today we'll be focusing on the strategic automation aspects for export-driven SMBs,
Yes.
especially SMBs looking to participate in global supply chains, in global value chains, right? So we'll be diving in that topic today, which we both feel is very critical for SMBs in the given days and times. And let's kick it off. Aniket, what do you say?
Absolutely, absolutely. Hello, everyone. I'm Aniket Vaksore. Thanks. I'm very pleased to share this stage with Shantanu. I have almost 15 plus years in global supply chain and robotics automation uh, arena. I have I'm ex Amazon. I've worked in Amazon automating warehouses and also replanning their supply chain, saving around $9.6 million in saving. I have Six Sigma and operational excellence certification. So yeah, let's dive into this new topic, and then we'll look forward for hearing from you how this topic does it address your problem. We'll be curious to know. But let's dive into the topic and then get going.
Yeah. So yeah, I think this exec summary slide beautifully captures the whole opportunity and the challenge slide. Um, if you talk about the opportunity, the numbers are staggering, especially if you see in India, there's $1.2 trillion of additional trade that India is targeting by 2030. That's a huge money on the table, and I'm sure SMBs listening from India should, if they are not already, should salivate on this number. As given the kind of opportunities that exist in exporting or participating in export value chains. I know there have recently been some blips in the equation, but in general, the general trends is toward more of manufacturing in India for the world, right?
Yep.
So that's the opportunity side, and I think on the challenge side, the credit gaps. I think that's a big number as well. But you if you look at the balance, there's just so much more to be gained than
Mhm.
there is to be lost in this case.
Absolutely. And then here's the reality check. On the opportunity, India's current robot density is only at 9.4% of the global average.
Mm.
So that's a big weakness, I would say. And I see it as a massive runway for productivity. But the challenge, as I see on the ground, is not just technology. It is the big gap. I mean, that's why we need to dig deeper, and then we have to also look at the real total cost of ownership. It runs 56%
Correct.
above. So
Correct.
let's
That's
dive
true.
into the next slide and then see what's out there. What do you think? Global opportunity
Yeah,
gap. Okay.
let's go there. Let's look at the numbers once again. Go ahead.
Yep. So this chart, this shows visualizes the runway that I mentioned. Like it shows the number of robots per 10,000 worker, and you can
Mm.
see yourself. India, s- it's sitting around only 7 robots.
Mm. Yeah, and again, not just compared with the global average, the global, if you look at China, if you look at South Korea, some of the countries that have adopted robotics or adopted more efficient manufacturing practices are way ahead in terms of robotics adoption as well. So I think they are tilting the scales in terms of the global average, but not just they. It's almost every developing as well as developed country that's looking at robotics as the next big area for investment if you want to improve your manufacturing efficiencies. Right.
100%. And that's this is not to scare people. Just we need to be honest, but this is to show that the gap has changed. We can't just compete on labor cost anymore. In fact, the labor cost arbitrage is not, it's the past now. The global export market demands a level of quality and productivity that our competitors are achieving through the automation. That's why automation is very important.
Mhm. And again, one thing that I do need to also that our friends from the thinking is on one hand we are saying that the adoption of robotics is low in India. On the other hand, we are also talking about the vast human capital that India has, that it can readily invest in you know in the manufacturing sector, which by itself is contributing less to our overall GDP as compared
Yes,
to some of our other developing and developed economies. So one thing that I do want to put out is it might come out as a fear if, for many SMBs, that whether higher adoption of robots is further going to impact jobs or further going to impact how human capital or human resources are going to be used in manufacturing. But I would just say that if you really step back and look at how the world is emerging technologically and in what the world is demanding, the global markets are demanding. If India wants a significantly large player, then it will have to work with both human capital as well as robotics. So it's not a case that robots are going to replace humans. Of course, there will be humans who are working earlier to more of downstream skill sets where that work robots, but then the humans will go to value added work, and you could in fact then be able to exponentially increase your output because humans and robots or humans and automation are now working together. So I think, and we will touch upon probably that topic in one of our upcoming too, on what's the human impact of robotics and automation. But from
hmm,
the previous slide where it shows that the robotics adoption is so low in India, the counter argument could be that because we have people, we are not adopting robots right now. But that's a foul argument to make. You're not going to win with that in today's global challenges.
correct.
So yeah,
And in
let's
terms of
look at what
efficiency,
those global context is, and where does India uh, play, where does it play right now, and where it should be playing going forward. So this slide shows the global value chain. It India's participation in the global value chain has actually declined over the last decade, as you can see in this graph, from down from 47% to about 41%. So
yes, and that's a worrying
that's what
trend
we are
for me. I
seeing.
mean,
Yes.
it yeah, it means we are becoming a less integrated into the global flow of goods.
And our aspirations are actually quite different. As we spoke earlier, there is this 1.2 trillion additional trade goal by 2030.
Hmm.
the entire um, target of making India a developed nation by 2047. If we have to hit 2047, we have to hit the milestones in between to hit what should be in 2040, 2035, and 2030. And by 2030, we have to reach 1.2 trillion additional trade of exports. But we are not going to reach there just by making more stuff. We reach there by making that stuff smartly enough with high quality, high reliability, and high compliance. That's where I think our top
Compliance.
comes into play.
Very,
Yeah.
very well said, Shantanu. And this is what I hear from buyers as well. They need to trust their suppliers. For an SMB, automation is the key to closing those reliability gaps. So it's how you meet the documentation standards, the proven quality, and then build that crucial buyer layer, the crucial buyer's trust. That's very significant and that's very important. That's where they need to focus their attention to. So let's move on to the next slide and see what's the $530 billion question
Yeah, I
is.
think we spoke about correct. Yeah. So we spoke about the opportunity, and on one hand, you can keep talking about the opportunity, but on the other hand, you also need to really dream big, but then also get up, smell the coffee, and start working towards that big dream. So you then, as you do start doing that, you start facing these challenges, as we pointed out earlier. The biggest hurdle probably that SMBs are facing today is access to the right amount and the right quality of capital. So that's what we are calling the 530 billion question. That's the estimated gap that Indian MSMEs are facing currently. On one hand, what they need to be successful and to be a significant player in global supply chains versus what they actually have. So that's a big number. And even in terms of the population of SMBs, almost 86% of MSMEs, as you can see here, are getting affected by this.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, mean, you look at the chart. India sitting at 14%, China around 37%, US at 50%. So really staggering gap. Um,
Yeah, and again, it all boils down to access to capital. I think
yes,
technologically, some of the Indian SMBs or MSMEs are right up there. I don't think lack of access to technology or the quality of technology per se is the challenge, but how to achieve scale, how to implement that technology on a wider base across the operations, and what is the right kind of money that needs to be invested for that. I think access to that and understanding of that capital is the issue.
totally, totally. And that's why our approach has to be different. We can't just recommend a $1 million system. The implication is that our automation plan that must be anchored in a new models like RAS that we talked about in our last podcast, robotics as a service, RAS model. That is like you can implement it in phase pilots. Start with more obvious problem or use case. Start there, bring up your entire ecosystem in your company around it, build it, and then see the results, and then scale it from there. And that's in maximizing government, that also like we have to get creative to get started, to be honest. So
No,
we'll discuss
absolutely.
those things in detail in next slides, but we just want to prompt you there that yeah, we did discuss that, but that is uh, don't just get stuck on that, oh, we don't have capital. If you get creative and if you look around, options around you, there are much more.
Absolutely. So maybe we can break it down. Let's,
Hmm.
you said we'll see slightly later in the presentation or in the podcast, in the discussion on how can we build more of those capital sources. But let's
Yep.
say you do have the money.
Mhm.
Once you know that you have the right kind of capital, right amount of capital, even then, if you see here, there are some real barriers that SMBs typically face, which which keeps them away from adopting robotics or adopting automation to any significant level. If you see in the chart here, technical issues, um, as I said, that's not a big problem, but it is one of the top four. But that's only about, let's say, 15% of the failures,
Hmm.
right? So
Correct. And the
lack of
biggest
business
bar is
case, I think that's, yeah, the that's about 20% too. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
no, no, no. You're fine. You said it right, and I think the biggest bar is 65% organizational failures. That is what I see all the time. Like, the robot works, but the process is broken. Why the process is broken?
Right,
Because people aren't trained. So the
right,
workflow was not
right.
just redesigned; the culture rejected it.
Correct. Yeah, and the middle two things here, business cases and awareness, that's what really builds the culture. They kind of go hand in hand. If you are serious about adopting these things, and implementing these things, you would go about creating good business cases around that. You would make sure that the organization across vertically, horizontally, is aware of what you're trying to achieve and what is their role to play in that, right? So even those two become very important to develop that culture eventually,
Okay.
which is what maybe is missing, and that's why that organizational failures bar is out of bounds there.
Yeah, 100%. And then that's why I think the action is here is simple. Start with quantified pilots. Don't try to automate the whole factory. That was we have been keep repeating this, but it is very essential that you need to start small, prove the value in one focus area, tie it to the customer outcome, measure those results, and then scale it later on. So let's
Absolutely.
look at to the next slide, ROI, and then we can dive in. Let's talk about numbers here. What can you really expect? This is the ROI reality. Based on this data, like from hundreds of implementation, you can see that productivity jump 18 to 30%, and quality
Hmm.
enhances by 20 to 35%. That's real. It's typically happens within a 12 to 24 months, or almost 1 to 2 year time frame.
Right. And these are from real case studies, like
Yeah,
I think based on actual companies who have implemented these and shown results. A
yeah. I've
typical
added the source
payback,
here.
12 to 36% is correct. Yeah,
Correct.
12 to 36 per months payback is possible. And as Aniket, you mentioned, if you start small, um, if you identify the right areas in your operations to automate or to implement those robots, uh, the ROIs are going to be higher in that. There are smaller high ROI applications with cobots or collaborative robots, as the long form. Those paybacks, if you see, they are within 6 to 12 months, so much faster, even faster than what your CFO might come back and react about hearing those numbers. So I think that serves your CFOs very well.
Mm-hmm.
This is what they would like to hear if you take a business case to them.
100%, 100%. And look at, like now for the hidden cost I mentioned earlier, integration is 50-70% of your total cost. So
Hmm.
if you look into total cost of running, that's 56% above your vendor quote. That's the budget killer. That's for maintenance, training, spare parts. So
Yeah, I think that's why the playbook that we keep talking about, that's important. I think we have mentioned it now.
many
This is the
times,
fifth
yeah.
podcast, maybe 10 times each podcast, so 50 times so far. That you must use phased pilots. You must use modularization. Use the RAS model, robotics as a service model, where you don't have an upfront high capex cost. You break it down into uh, foreseeable and predictable monthly outflows, and that's just reduces that overall burden on you, of that huge upfront capital cost.
All right, moving
Yeah,
to the
I
next
think
slide. Yeah.
correct. I think this is the crux of the whole discussion. This is one of my favorite slides because it simplifies the whole thing. We call it the export automation spectrum, broken down into three levels that really matter, right?
Mhm. The level one, yeah, it's operational foundation. That's your immediate ROI. That's it. That isn't even a big robot. It's a RPA, robotic
Mm.
process automation, that handles your invoices. Then the machine vision to do the quality
Mm.
checks, that has
Mm.
vision system inbuilt in it, and then the RFID, which is very well known to track the parts.
Yeah.
So these are some of the low hanging fruits.
Correct. And once you start gaining some confidence after implementing these operational foundations, I think it then becomes easier for companies to
Scale.
move into the second level, which is integrating those parts into the wider supply chain.
Correct.
So you start creating the visibility across. Now you're making the processes more transparent, you're using more sensors in your machines, capturing more data from your operations. So the more data, although might sound like a big burden to again analyze and get some insights from it, but then I think what has also grown parallelly is this whole AI tools for data information management and forecasting demand, and a host of AI suites or advanced software suites that you can use, and that really then has an impact on optimizing your forecasting, optimizing your delivery routes, and a whole lot of supply chain aspects in that.
True. And then only then do you get to level three, which is like advanced automation. That's the highest complexity. Look at, like, robotics. Now, I know in some industries here in US, I've seen blockchain for traceability. They've been using that. Uh, I was part of one of the pilot project to implement that. But yeah, I mean, that's where we need to start. Blockchain does have a really good potential on traceability, making sure the entire uh, supply chain bottlenecks are visible at every stage of the game. That adds the true value. And then obviously, this IoT sensors does have a really good value on predictive maintenance. Uh,
No, absolutely. Yeah, I think the guidance is simple, right? And it's simple because not because we are saying it or not because we have put it in a nice slide here,
mm,
but it's because it's proven. It's proven by usage by many companies, as Aniket was saying. He has seen that in Amazon. I have seen it work in Honeywell, in other companies that I have studied as part of this. It works. So it's not because we are saying, or not because it's a good thing to put in a podcast or a PPT. It's really things that are working. You go by the ROI, and that is the most important thing for any SMB. Although they might be attracted by these hype cycles, unless they progress by keeping ROI front and center, they're not going to master it. So you master level one before you go too ahead of yourselves and get distracted by level three. I think that's the message we want to put out here.
yes, absolutely. Let's go on to the next slide. Cost models that work. Now we can connect those levels to the cost models, right? Traditional robot, as we covered in the last podcast, also, your almost like $100,000 machine has a
Mm.
3-year cost that can easily top up to $200,000. But
Mm.
Cobot, on the other hand, it's much cheaper.
Mm.
We're talking about around 25 to 75, which almost one fourth of your cost.
Absolutely. And again, if you look at the fourth column or the third column after the options, that's the real game changer, right? No upfront capital cost. If you're using the RAS model, the robotics as a service model, just look at the 3-year cost. It's a fraction of others, of course, not because that's this is a 3-year picture. The total, you'd be paying some value even after. But then, if you look at the total cost of ownership, that's still going to be a big saving compared to the traditional capital first approaches.
Correct. And then with the RAS, you're paying a monthly fee, say about $500 to $2,000. Uh, that
Hmm.
includes integration and maintenance. So you move the entire expense from a capital expenditure, capex, to a predictable operating expenditure, opex. Right.
Right, absolutely, absolutely. And this is just, uh, a comparison between the capex model and the opex model in that closed ecosystem. Now, if you introduce into this mix uh, the government subsidies or
Hmm.
the additional benefits that you can gain from utilizing some of the incentives that the government is offering, some of the subsidies that they are offering, I think that sweetens the deal much more. So, for our listeners in India, for SMBs in India, you would have heard about things like Z, PLI, CLCSS, which can give you anywhere between 15 to 75% of incentives on sales. Right? So
Hmm.
I think it would be worth looking at those things as well, Aniket.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Let's move on to the next slide, Z certification, and let's talk about more about that.
Right, absolutely. So, as you mentioned, the Z certification, that's your quality foundation. Z stands for zero defect, zero effect. You know.
Yeah, and that's a government-backed framework. That's in my opinion essential. The zero defect pillar is all about systematic quality management, defect prevention, and statistical process control (SPC). We are talking about 40 to 60% defect reduction. There is a source added to there. We done the research. This was the study published on that paper, DS MSME Z guidelines,
Mhm.
and these numbers, 40 to 60% defect reduction. That's staggering number. Can't ignore that.
No, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. And that forms the the one primary or principal pillar. The other pillar is the zero effect pillar, which is about all about sustainability, about energy efficiency and waste reduction. Um, you have all those SDG goals, sustainable development goals, but a large part of that is your ESG compliance, environmental, governmental compliances. So as SMBs now need to wake up to the fact that this is no more coffee shop talk. Anything related to sustainability, carbon emissions, energy efficiency is going to be again front and center in boardroom conversations going forward, and it's not just going to be nice to have things. Um, Internationally as well, now that we are talking about participating in the global supply chains, people will be looking at India to see if they are complying with these goals or not. And I think SMBs will have to gear up to do that.
Absolutely. And that's best part. Like government provides almost, you mentioned, right, subsidy up to 75% for the certification cost. That's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's directly linked to market access.
True.
Large buyers and government tenders give preference to Z certified firms. It's sort of a stamp of approval, a certification that would open doors for you. You can actually flaunt it, as they say, if you have it, uh, why not flaunt it? So these kind of certifications do give that slight edge to you as an SMB when you're
True.
playing in these markets. In fact, I just read 3 4 days back the Maharashtra government, um,
Hmm.
they announced an incentive scheme for sugar factories in the state, and
Oh,
as
nice.
part of the as part of the scheme, sugar factories will be evaluated on 9 different sets of metrics, and the top performing sugar factories on that KPI list, on 9 KPIs, will be awarded at the end of the year. There are special incentives announced for them for the top performing sugar factories. And 3 of those metrics out of the 9 that they have listed, they are related to use of AI, reduction in carbon footprint, and increasing operational efficiency, as demonstrating tangible efficiency improvement in their operations. So the
Fantastic.
score that yeah, the score that they have attributed to these three things out of 9 is 25% of the 100 that you can score on it. So you can imagine, you see it there itself that there is some great focus being put by governments as well, and some really good benefits and advantages to be gained with this approach.
Fantastic. No, thanks for sharing that. That's really great to see that
Yeah,
adoption. Let's move
absolutely.
on to the next
And
next
if
slide. Z ROI.
yeah, correct. So if that, what we said earlier, if that still doesn't convince you, then this Z ROI slide will surely do. Again, everything is research backed. These are not numbers that we have made up. But just look at this: the total 3-year ROI, the greenmost bar on the right, in real SMB case studies. These are the documented ROIs that they have seen. 700% plus. That's staggering, right?
Correct. And then the SMBs out there, right? They might be wondering, like, how's that possible? Like, look at the chart. The chart breaks it down. You have your small initial investments, then you get into the massive returns from defect reduction, energy savings, waste reduction, and the big kicker, access to the new buyers who will pay a premium for your proven quality.
Mm. Yeah, and again, the typical payback here would be about 8 to 18 months. That's again demonstrated by those SMBs. And the story is simple, right? You use Z to audit funding findings to prioritize your level 1 automation investments. If you use that Z audit, that literally gives you a roadmap uh, on how to tackle your biggest problems. And
True.
also gives you that badge once you go through the whole. It gives you that badge of honor, which is going to differentiate you from the the general population.
Correct. All right, let's look at the government support metrics and their enablers, US enablers. Chandra, you want to
Yeah, so
cover that? Yeah.
that's correct. I think this one is an important one as well. We already spoke about Z, but let's look at some of these in some more detail.
Correct. So the Z, we covered this up to 75% subsidy on certification cost. That's
Hmm.
a really good one. PLI, which is production linked incentive, that is also huge. Around 4 to 12% incentive on incremental sales for 14 key
Hmm.
sectors. You sell more, you get bonus. The last one, credit linked capital subsidy. This gives you up to
Hmm.
15% capital subsidy, max up to 15 lakh for technological upgrades.
Hmm. I think that's very relevant for our Indian SMBs, but even for our US SMBs, Section 179 that gives you immediate deduction up to 1 million plus for equipment. That's, I think, a massive tax advantage in itself. And manufacturing extension partnerships, the MEP centers, oh,
Yep.
they are there in all the 50 states in the US, and they do offer subsidized consulting and grants for small medium businesses that are under 500 employees.
Absolutely. And then, here is a pro tip. Stack these incentives, right? And to get a bigger gain, use your Z certification to get preferential bank rates, and it
Hmm.
will improve your chances for PLI.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, uh, everything is easier said than done. It's
Ah, yeah.
Had it been that simple, we wouldn't be talking about it, right? It would have already been adopted. So
Hmm.
it does take work. It does take a lot of discipline. But that's our point, right? Just go about this stuff with a very disciplined approach, very structured approach. Have a dedicated incentive scheme or management around it. Maintain a quarterly filing rhythm, and pre-qualify your vendors. So there needs to be a very structured and disciplined approach if you have to achieve uh, you know, what we have laid out here.
Absolutely. So this is the decision guardrail. So with all this, how do you decide, right, what to automate? This is what we have prepared. It's called a 4C framework. 4C stands for, first one is cost. What's your real total cost of ownership and ROI timeline? Second C is complexity. Is your current process stable? Do you have SOPs?
Mm,
Do you have a, like, statistical process process study have implemented on that? You have stable manufacturing capability index have out, like, for your process that has been stable. Do those studies and make sure your process is stable and capable. Culture. Third thing is culture. Is your team ready for that change, right? Like,
mm,
do the sentiment analysis, do the vibe analysis on your current. How are they ready for this change, or you need to start from educating them, advocating for this change. Fourth one is
mm.
capability. Do you have the internal expertise to manage this?
Right. No, this is amazing because as you know, strategy consultants, we always like to put things in four blocks, and this does exactly that. But then it so beautifully puts it down, so simply puts it down on how to start your journey. Where should you focus first? And we always say this in our strategy sessions, in our business planning sessions, that as you are putting thought and effort into deciding what are you going to do next, you should also put equal effort in saying what are you not going to do next, right? What are
True.
you going to stop doing next? I think that's also an important decision to understand what areas of the operations are you not going to automate. So if you have an unstable process, if you have process or areas in the business with poor data, don't automate them upfront. Don't go for
Absolutely.
first trying to clean that system, clean that data, and then I'll say that I'll automate it. No, you should never try to use this kind of technology to solve a people or a process problem where it's about bad data and unstable processes, because you're just going to feed a dead horse and it's not going to lead you anywhere. So
True.
focus
You'll
on
waste that.
what is good. Right.
No, 100%. And you'll waste that investments, right? And then you'll end up spending, oh, why, this technology does not work. No, it's not like that. Your strategy has to be really right. So that the metrics is simple. You start in the top left, high ROI, low complexity. That's your first biggest gainer. Then this is your document automation on a basic vision inspection. Then you avoid the bottom right, low ROI, high complexity. As Shantanu said, if you don't have a process table or you don't have good documentation, lot of process people problem, avoid that, and it's gonna be a low ROI. It's worth not investing any efforts or money in that.
Hmm. No,
Right.
amazing. All right,
So
I think
this
we are
is,
close to, yeah,
yep.
close to
I
the
think we covered this in detail.
beyond.
This is just a, yeah, extension of that. So
Right.
we'll just skip to, and let's. I'm just watching my time.
Let's
Almost
go
a
to
minute.
the takeaways, next steps. Yeah, let's
Yes.
wind it up by bringing it all together. So we have four key takeaways here. Reality: costs are higher, timelines are longer, but then plan for the real total cost of ownership, which is often 56% above what is quoted. So keep that in mind and then plan for those implementation, those projects. The reward is worth it. The upside is worth it. 18
Hmm.
to 30% productivity gains, 20 to 30% quality enhancements are achievable. Again, proven by real life case studies, not just science research or lab research. Um, you must use decision frameworks like the four C's to get your TCO numbers right. Those are some of the non-negotiables. Use the Z certification as a badge of honor, as your foundation, as a differentiator, as something that sets you apart from everyone else. And finally, use the RAS models to get the economics right. Start with low risk, avoid that high upfront capital cost, and just leverage these three or four tools, everything, every subsidy that you can, to make sure that you succeed.
Very well said. Yeah, I think you covered most of that, so I don't have to repeat. Like, the four steps are pretty clear. First one, 90-day export automation sprint. Second, nominate a cross-functional lead who has an authority in that area. Third is lock a small budget for a level one RAS pilot. Start from there. And the fourth one, begin your Z certification prep in parallel. You can do all this in parallel. So, all
Yeah,
right.
and as they say, what gets measured gets managed. Or if you flip it around, you can say if you want to manage something, you should measure it. So
Correct.
measure it, track it on a quarterly basis, on a regular basis. I would say, start off with a cadence, and then modify it or adopt it as it suits your business. But the important part is to start measuring these things, to review these things more regularly as you go.
Absolutely.
Right.
All
So,
right.
any final thoughts for our listeners, Aniket?
I think covered it. I mean, don't try to boil the ocean, right? Biggest barrier is just getting started. Pick one small
Yeah.
problem, high impact problem, that level one high ROI target that we talked about, the four quadrant. Do the proof of concept, and then momentum will start building from there.
No, absolutely well said. And that's what we are here to help you do that. So that's our
Yes,
practical roadmap for you. And also, with this, I think we really look forward to engage with you all as our listeners, as more than listeners. I think someone who cares cares about how can Indian US SMBs achieve uh, these numbers, these benefits, as they go into the future. So, thank you everyone for joining us on this podcast, Pivot and Produce, as we are calling it. And I hope we do cross paths soon. We'll keep communicating with you, interacting with you as part of this podcast series. But do let us know if you want to engage with us. Otherwise, uh, uh, we'll we'll be leaving our credentials on these various platforms. They are there on LinkedIn
yes.
as well as our websites. So feel
I'm
free
just
to,
putting out this slides. You can refer
yeah,
the email ID and the LinkedIn ID. So reach out to us and do let us know if you are liking these topics. And if you have any other burning problems that you would like us to discuss in this podcast, reach out to us. Comment on our LinkedIn post. We'll be putting this on LinkedIn, as well as Shantanu does have a YouTube channel. Interact with us. We would love to hear from you. And thank you all. Have a great weekend. See you next time.
yes, thank you. Good day. Bye bye. Take care.